In an era of algorithm-driven playlists and non-stop notifications, the iPod is experiencing something of a renaissance. Even among music listeners who never owned an iPod before the line was axed by Apple, the digital music player is providing an alternative for those who want to own rather than stream their music. While there are dedicated digital music players available with flash or expandable storage, new batteries and better connectivity, the charm of the click wheel and that timeless, straightforward design are still proving attractive. Back when Apple was still releasing new iPods, the radio brand Roberts introduced the Robi. With a 30-pin connector and a 3.5mm headphone socket, it connected between the iPod and a pair of earbuds to provide DAB and FM radio listening or simply work as a remote control. The idea of a radio built into an iPod remote wasn't completely new. Apple did create their own radio remote with FM reception and remote controls. If you've switched from a smartphone to an iPod but still want to catch some live radio shows, is it worth looking for a Roberts Robi online? I'm going to pronounce it Robi. I think it might be Robi as iPod, but we'll see. So before we take it out of the packaging, I just want to mention about the iPods I'm going to try it out with. So I'm going to use iPod Nanos because that's what I've got to hand. I've got a second generation iPod Nano here. This one didn't have an FM radio built in, but the fifth generation did. It had the camera in it as well, but it did have an FM radio on board. We can see though, when we go into it, we get the frequency, and actually the reception's pretty good. It picks up the RDS and the radio text really quickly. I think you can just make it out there. It's saying David Guetta and BB Rexa at the moment. And actually the FM is pretty good on this, but in a second we'll plug in the Roberts device. I want to mention as well quickly, the battery life on both of these iPods is not very good now after so many years of use and being left in drawers and so on. So we shall see how we get on, but we might have to plug it in a few times to charge it up. So looking at the packaging, we have the Robi on the front there. This reminds me a little bit of the plastic packaging that we got with the Roberts Dab 5 when we looked at that a few years ago. So you can see there's some controls on the front and a little LCD display as well. A fixed cable coming out of the left side and a headphone socket on the right side. So of course we'll see that when we get it open. We can see it's got the Made for iPod badge on the bottom left, and I'll just mention about the price. So it has a sticker on it to say that it was £10 from an independent electrical shop. On the back it was marked down from 60, so I don't know if this one has been sat about for a little while. And then the cable coiled up in the back, and we've got the 30-pin connector as well for the iPod, and a little instruction booklet in there. So in the packaging we've got the instruction manual mentioning there about the DAB and the FM functionality, things like that. It's a pretty good manual, it seems, lots of detail in there, again all very reminiscent of even recent Roberts radios, even though this was out quite a while ago, so we'll have that to hand. We do get some earphones included as well. They are white to go with the device. They are those funny gummy type with the earpieces there, so I'll use my own iPhone earbuds. And then we have the device itself. So we have the 30-pin connector to plug into the bottom of the iPod. The cable feels a little bit stiff, not quite as flexible as your normal iPod cables. And then on the front here we've got the controls. So we've got play pause in the center, backwards and forwards, up and down, and then we have the little LCD display as well. On the top there is a button there with a favorites icon on it, and on the sides we've got a hold switch. On the opposite side we have a mode switch, and on the back we've got a little clip as well, so that's quite handy because you can have the iPod in your pocket, have that clipped on your jacket or your bag or whatever. So we shall plug in the 30-pin connector into the bottom of the iPod and see what it does. There we go, attached accessory. And it does look like we're getting the scan starting on the screen of the Robi. On first impressions, the display is not what I expected at all. It is a lot more detailed. It does say we found 13 stations on the first, on that multiplex. Now we're up to 35, so we'll see how many more it does find. Just been having a flick through the stations that the Robi has found. It has found all the stations I would expect, but the DAB Plus stations are in the station list, but there's no audio when you go onto them. So it is a bit of a pain flicking through those stations. Some radios that aren't DAB Plus compatible, they just don't list them. So you just have a smaller station list, but at least all of them work. So Gold UK, that's a DAB Plus station, so there's no audio there. Greatest Hits on the local multiplex, that does work. You can listen to that on here in North Yorkshire, but going through then you find Heart Naughties, that's DAB+. So even though you get this signal strength at the top, which is picking up a pretty good signal, there's no audio at all there. And if we keep going through, Heart Northeast, that one is coming through, can listen to that, but then Heart UK, I can't, and Heart Dance neither. So that's a bit of a pain, but it is to be expected for a device of this age that doesn't support the DAB Plus stations. So first impressions after using the Robi for a couple of minutes already, it's pretty good. The display I'm really surprised with. That's a lot more detailed than I expected. That is actually quite a nice thing. I did wonder why it has its own display instead of using that in the iPod. Maybe that wasn't possible, but that display is actually pretty good for what it is. But I can't find a way to get to scrolling text or bitrate or multiplex, anything like that. It just does seem to have the station name, the signal strength, and I think, yeah, it's a volume meter on the left hand side there. So volume up and down with the plus and minus buttons, back and forward. You can start a rescan by holding down the next button for a couple of seconds. Looking around it, we have got that mode button on the side, so we'll switch over to FM mode in a minute, and we can also use it just as a plain iPod remote as well. And then on this side we have got that hold switch, and we shall have a look at the presets as well. But yeah, overall impressions, not too bad. Certainly worth the £10, that's for sure, even if it only gets the plain DAB Plus stations. But being able to go along to, say, 5 Live and listen to that, pretty good. The sound quality is really good. It is like a personal radio. So we looked previously at the Roberts Sports DAB5. To me it sounds pretty good, fairly similar to that. So it's not tinny or flat or anything like that. That is actually quite nice. I haven't yet listened to any music off the iPod, need to try that as well just to see how that goes. But yeah, a nice little device so far. There is a preset mode. I will try and demonstrate if you look at the display next to the DAB icon there. So if we press the preset button on the top, you see we get this little heart icon come up, and if I go left and right, it will go through the couple of stations that I've set as a preset. If I turn the heart off, then I can just navigate through all the stations. So if I come back to one which isn't a preset yet, we'll find Radio 4. And then I'm going to hold down the preset button so we get that tick on it, and then that will just let us navigate through the stations normally. And then if I want to open up the presets, I can push the button on the top, the little heart comes up, and then navigating through we see the stations that have been set as a preset, and then can go on to one, and now that's tuned in. I can press the heart again to come out of the preset list, and now I can scroll through them again. So it's a nice little interface, that works alright. Let's see if we can find just a normal DAB station, and we tune back into Capital. So yeah, preset mode, that's quite nice, quite intuitive, and that little heart icon, funnily enough, I think that's just the same as the new Roberts radios have now for their preset lists. Power is supplied to the Robi from the iPod. Battery life is quoted as up to 5 hours of DAB or 8 hours of FM radio listening on the iPod Nano and Video 30GB models. Up to 8 hours of DAB and 12 hours of FM listening should be possible with the Video 80GB model. So I mentioned that the Robi has a couple of modes. We've been having a look at the DAB, but there is an FM mode as well. So we'll push the mode button and jump over to FM, and we shall see if it picks up any stations. So if we try TFM, that does come up, and we've got the RDS as well. Like I say, I can't find any way to get any sort of scrolling text, radio text, anything like that, but it does seem to tune in pretty quickly. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I'm just holding down the next button, and it's going up. It is actually very fast, tuning into those different FM stations. Which would be classic FM. Yeah, so that's quite impressive, really. It's very quick tuning around the FM. So again, that is quite a nice thing. When this came out, there were still some local stations, I think, that weren't on DAB yet. So being able to switch back and forth between FM and DAB, quite useful. But nowadays, I think the vast majority of local stations that are on FM, commercial stations anyway, are on DAB as well. But that's another nice little feature to have if you do just want to listen to a station that's on FM, and the reception seems to be good as well. So the last thing to look at is just the remote control. I expect that would just do our normal remote functions. That's accessed on the side again by pressing that mode button that we switched between DAB and FM with. So it is the last mode on there. Play and pause on the front just to start and stop your music. We've got the backwards and forwards buttons. That all works fine. So yeah, quite nice actually to rediscover some songs I forgot I had in iTunes and get those synced onto this iPod, and that all works absolutely fine. And then you've got the plus and minus buttons. That still does the volume for the headphones. You can see the little icon there with the speaker icon. So yeah, that all works fine as well. I did just want to try out the Robi with the older iPod Nano. This is a second generation Nano. So I've got it plugged in again to the 30-pin connector there. So we shall just press on the mode button to come over to DAB. And straight away we have the Robi logo from Roberts there. And we've got Hits T-side shown on the display. And the headphone volume working fine. If we go over to FM, that's still there. And if we go over to remote, I think we should be able to still use the remote. So if we come into now playing, we have that Freddie Mercury song. I'll press play, and that starts playing it there. And I think that's all working normally. So yeah, I wanted to find out on the older iPod Nano if that works still, and it's absolutely fine. So is it worth buying one of these in 2025? I think it depends if you can get the station that you want to listen to. So if you want to listen to Radio 4, 5 Live, your local commercial station or your local BBC station, if you've maybe got an iPod with a good battery in it and you listen to music and podcasts, but sometimes you would just like to hear some sport commentary or get up to date on the news, things like that, I think it's a nice little device. The reception is good, the sound quality is good, both on DAB and FM, and you've always got that remote functionality as well. In terms of price, I think I paid about £10 for this, and I think that was good value for money. I don't know I would pay too much more than that, just because the list of stations you will receive will probably only go down. Already this year we've seen some stations go from DAB to DAB+, so if you were listening to something like History or Absolute Radio on this, that's no longer possible. But as a device on its own, if you can find one for a good price online, I think it's a nice little thing to add if you've got an iPod that you've started using again. Thank you very much for watching this quick look at the Robi? I think it's Robi. You can find more reviews of retro DAB devices here on the channel.